Welcome to the Planet Purl video tutorial for Pick Up and Knit. Our supplies for today's lesson: some knitting. I have contrast yarn, knitting needles, and a crochet hook. Now we're going to learn how to pick up stitches along the bound off edge or cast on edge. Normally we're going to be picking up stitches across a bound off edge like this, or the cast on edge if you're picking up to do some ribbing at the bottom. And as you can see, for the top edge here, we're going to be looking for the little V's at the tops that show the knit stitches right below the bind off chain. So we're going to be working in those in the center of those V's. So you're looking for those little holes at the center. So now you could temporarily knot this to attach it. I'm just going to hold it in the back because we're going to be picking up and knitting, so we'll be holding the yarn in the back. So we will always want to go through that corner stitch, both the first corner and the last corner. We'll hold the yarn in the back, and we're just going to knit. Just wrap the yarn as if to knit, and then just pull a loop up. It's really this simple. So look for the next V, and you're going to put the needle back through that V, wrap the yarn, and just pull the loop through. Now, since we're working across the top or bottom edge, we're going to pick up in every V, unless you're told otherwise, stitch for stitch. So you'll be picking up every stitch across the way. Now, if you're picking up along angles, it'll be a little different, and usually your instructions will tell you where it'll shift how many between, say, the center front of the neck and the shoulder, and then from shoulder to shoulder across the back if you're picking up. So let's look at what this looks like on the back. Now, because the entire edge of the bind off is here, it looks like a regular seam, as if you had done it in mattress stitch with a full stitch. Now, depending on what kind of picking up you're doing and where that's going to show, you may want to use the second method, which is we're going to go through the back of the bind off V's, chain across the top. So we're just going to go through the back part of that stitch, and we're going to do exactly the same thing where we wrap and pull a loop through. And let's do a few of these, and let's look at the difference. So once again, through the back of that bind off chain at the top, through the back of the chain, and just wrap and knit. So you can see how clean that is on the front of the stockinette side with the first version we did, and how you can see the little edge of the bottom chain doing it the second way. But when you turn it around, instead of getting the full stitch, it actually looks like the back of the stockinette piece. So it's invisible on the back side. So depending on what kind of, let's say if you're picking up for a collar, depending on how you're trying to accomplish that, you would change your method. So now if we're picking up on the side, it's a little bit different. Because first of all, we'll be knitting in a different direction than our knitting is going. We still want to go through, pick up through a full stitch in. So we want to make sure we get a nice solid seam. So we'll hold it in the back because of course we're picking up and knitting. So assuming that you actually capture the yarn, and then you'll pull it through and create that loop. Now I'm going to go through the V's, keeping an entire stitch in that edge there. So now here's where you get a little different. Since we're knitting in a different direction and the stitch gauge is not the same, normally when you're picking up on the side, you'll pick up 3, right? Because we're going in a different direction. You'll pick up 3 and you're going to skip 1. And then you'll go into the stitch after that. because stitches are wider than they are tall. So that's when you're working in stockinette stitch, it's usually a 3-to-4 ratio, and that's what we're working. So we're going to do 3 stitches, skip 1, and so we're picking up 3 out of every 4 stitches, right? So we skipped the 1, so we're picking up 3 out of every 4, which will give us usually a relatively close gauge going sideways when you're picking up along that side edge. So now if you find this a little awkward, and most people do when they first start, you can do this with a crochet hook, which some people find easier to do. So it's the same thing. We're going to hold the yarn in the back as if to knit. We're going to go through that stitch in the corner, and then we're just going to yarn over the crochet hook and pull it through. And then we're just going to transfer that stitch to the needle. Right? So, and we're just going to work our way across just as if that were a knitting needle, except we're going to pull the loops up with a crochet hook. And then we're just going to transfer that stitch over to the needle. And you can use this if you're picking up along a side edge as well. Some people just find it easier than trying to push the edge of the needle through the work. And you do it the same way, either picking up the full or the half stitch. So Paris wants me to pick her up and give her a treat. Come visit us soon at planetpurl.com.